Hi, Christian. Things look pretty good with your scales. You know, I wonder if in tones, um, the second square gets dark rather suddenly. In fact, you wouldn't want there to be a variation in value in your tone scale. And just a note, most people expect the tone scale to be on the bottom, so everybody pay mind here. Um, wow, you have some great design ideas for assignment 4. It's a pleasure to see all of these. Please submit your work as a JPEG. You can post 3 separate files. This will help alleviate problems like the one with the gradation in value on the left where there's a missing corner there. It happens with PDF formats. So with the gradation of hue, there is room for the colors to be more fully saturated. But with the other two, the gradation of saturation on right, for example, things look fine. Teresa, things look pretty good with your scales. I can see that you have the concepts here. Let's see. With the leftmost boxes, I want you to be more precise, about things like that. Those 3 boxes are supposed to be exactly the same color with the same RGB values. And maybe there are places where the interval could be evened out a little bit. Like intense. We have the first red box, then 2 lighter boxes that look quite a lot alike, those bright red ones, yet they look different from their neighbors on the outside. So let's see. Your gradation of value at the left looks great, and so does the gradation of saturation in center. With gradation in hue, I am looking for perfect circles. In fact, I'm looking for perfect circles in all of these. Maybe there are some less than perfect ones in the value gradation. But another thing that affects the gradation of hue is that all colors should be fully saturated. Hi, Destiny. These scales look pretty good. They show that you understand the concepts. Let's see. Your leftmost boxes need to all have the same R, G, and B values displayed in the color picker. So you need to be a stickler about things like this. Also, I wonder whether the interval is as gradual as it could be, for instance, on the left side of the tone scale, or what's going on with tints. Is that second box from left maybe a slightly different hue? Hi, Joseph. Your scales look pretty good here. There's just one little thing I know. When I take the color picker to that second to last box in tints, the one next to white, I am getting a tone. It's not a very dark tone, but you see, if you want to pick colors for tints, pick them from the topmost edge of the color picker fields. Now, with gradation of value, things look good. It might be said that you have not kept with the constant hue rule here because we've got a different color for our backdrop. Your gradation of hue looks good. Gradation of saturation is quite good too. However, the design could be more complex. Hi, Sam. I can see you've got the concepts down and that you're pretty good with the color picker. Things that are meant to match do, and you've got a pure black and a pure gray. However, you don't have a white at the end of tints. I wonder what happened here. Your backdrop has turned lavender. Hi, David. This is a really nice set of scales. I actually like the color you've chosen because each of the scales looks very different with this color. Now, I had to do a little juggling to fit everything in because you've got different proportions for your files here. I believe the one on the right is what you intend for gradation in value. However, with this piece you were asked to keep hue constant, so that means the whole thing should have been green or blue or red without having these 3 different hues used. Now, the middle one must be the gradation of hue. However, you're asked to keep all colors fully saturated. Now, at right we've got the gradation of saturation, which looks okay. However, I don't think you've got constant value there. Hi there, Lena. Your scales look quite good. maybe with tones the value could be a little more constant. Now, at first I thought this turquoise piece was intended to be your gradation of value, but after inspection I think it works better for gradation of saturation. The pink piece below could be the gradation of value, and the one bottom left must be the gradation of hue. However, the assignment's asking for those colors to be fully saturated. Scott, you have done a good job with the scales. This is the first set of scales I've seen situated on a backdrop of the complementary color. You are doing some eye-bugging work here, which in many instances is quite beautiful. I think the orange piece must be your gradation of value, and the green one is the gradation of saturation with value very constant. However, if hue was absolutely constant, then the backdrop would be green or white or some other neutral. The gradation of hue is quite lovely, but I've got to double check and make sure that all those colors are fully saturated. Hi, Kirsty, your scales check out okay. Now I'm giving some thought to this other piece, and what I believe we should do is count this as a gradation of hue, even though the colors are not all fully saturated ones. You'll have to do two separate designs for the other two parts in order to gain credit for those, and I'm going to write you a note in grade book comments about this. Well, hi, Andrew. Your scales look okay. Let's see. So with this other work on left is the gradation of value. Then on top at right is the gradation of hue. And then you've got the gradation of saturation below. So with work until week 5, I am asking you to omit stroke from all Illustrator files. Further, I'm going to point out that your compositions are not all made expressly of perfect circles. I do applaud your design sensibility. I notice that you're very specific about placement, arrangement, and you've got some nice creative ideas. Hi, Luana. Your scales look pretty good. I want you to check the black. The R, G, and B values in the color picker for that ought to be 0, 0, 0. Now, with your gradation of value, things look okay. However, there should be better resolution with this file, and I wonder if you're having trouble with that. I'm going to refer you to an announcement about image preparation. Take a look at that toward the bottom especially. Your gradation of hue looks pretty good. I noticed that there's a yellow circle next to a red one, and there we don't see the gradual transition. Now I'm not sure what's going on with your gradation saturation. This looks as though it's got severe resolution issues, and it even looks like a screenshot rather than a file that you created. Further, value is not constant. I want you to do this over and post it before 3 a.m. Mountain Time on Saturday morning so you'll get credit. Hi Wes, your scales did check out pretty well. The only problem is with tones, and that's the hardest one. It's pretty good on the whole, and I can see how the concepts. So toward the right end there is a fluctuation in value, and at the left end I see two colors, the bright blue that you start with and then a darker blue side by side, and that seems to be a little jump in interval. Wow, I really like your design ideas for assignment 4. Now at first I thought this magenta one was intended to be the gradation of value, but it may work better for gradation of saturation when we subject the two works there on the right to a grayscale test. Yeah, so with your gradation of value, you want value to change, and with the gradation of saturation, you don't want that to happen. Now, I like this gradation of hue. However, these colors aren't fully saturated, even while the gradation is nice and gradual. Melody, your scales look great, and this is an attractive presentation, too. I can also see a lot of time was invested in your gradation of value. One thing I'd say about that is that you could center it.